The Trailblazers
Hmm.
right now looking to double down on Dame. I think I've already stood with my position. I tend to lean towards blowing it up, especially when you've given it a whole lot of years and in their prime. I kind of he's just given it so many tries. It's time to try something new. But where do you stand, Rem? Do you like Dame going to Miami, or you know, do you think they should give it one more go around?
I think for Dame's sake, he should try to stay in Portland as long as possible.
Oh,
The second apron and the new CBA and the complications with team building, like team building is just going to become much more specific. Like guys are not going to be able to just jump from team to team and go wherever they want. Like there's going to have to be some thought put into how the contracts line up and how the teams work and how they want the big picture to ultimately end up being. Portland's big picture right now is not bad. With Simons there, he's only what, 20 some $million a year. You're going to have the number 3 pick. You're only going to be paying him in the 10, $12 million range, maybe even $9 million a year. And they also have Shaedon Sharpe, who is, I don't know, 7, $8 million a year. Like there's a world where they're paying less than $100 million for those 4 guys, and there's a lot of upside for those guys. There's not going to be a lot of rosters going forward that can minimize the fact that Dame is on such an expensive contract. You're gonna need
yeah.
you're gonna need high upside guys on lower contracts, and that's what they have. I mean, Simons is the $20 million a year guy, but Sharp on the rookie contract. I don't know if I have to plant another flag really quickly. I'm planting my flag on Shaedon Sharpe breakout season year 2. I guess technically Shaedon Sharpe should be in this draft. Remember, he reclassified from Kentucky, entered early, did like the weird 1 semester thing, was able to end up in the NBA. And if he's in college and just does the normal thing, was on pace to be like a top 3 pick, was a top 3 prospect originally in his class. I don't remember where he ends up ultimately in the in last year's recruiting class, but having Sharp on the rookie contract, there's not a lot of assets in the league that are going to be able to neutralize Dame's contract. Sharp has a chance to be one of those guys. The upside with him is I think I I think like legit number 2 on a title team. Now the question becomes
What?
I think the question becomes like, what is the timeline for that? But I think what
Oh
he
my
showed
God.
last year, just the Blazers have a history of not playing their young guys. Simons, his rookie year, like didn't really find his way on the court and was a young guy like Sharp. Sharp, they couldn't keep him off. He was too athletic. His athleticism alone was a weapon. Just put him in the corner. He can cut. He's dynamic just doing that. But the last 10 games of the season, 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 46% from the field, 37% from three. The shot was already starting to fall. That was one of the biggest question marks for him going into the draft. I think the question for the Blazers becomes like, what is the Shaedon Sharpe timeline? Because I think the ceiling for this guy, sky high. He's one of the most insane athletes in the league. He didn't test at the combine, but there were rumors around the draft that he had put up like a 49-inch vertical, and watch him jump like he just levitates in the air. Like he's an insane leaper. If the jump shot starts to fall, I don't know. I'm all in. Shaedon Sharpe, I think, has the potential just to be a sidekick to Dame, but also Simons is there, and also that number 3 pick asset is going to be there. There's just going to be a lot of cheap talent on Portland, and I think that's going to be important.
No, I think people are a little bit discounting of the talent on Portland. I think they do have a solid team there. I don't know about Shaedon Sharpe as number 2 player on a title team, but
Are you
I
throwing
do.
water
I
on
mean,
me?
yeah, just a little bit. You're on fire right now. I better cool off. But I do. I mean, his athleticism, if he is able to become a solid shooter, those last couple of games are interesting. I'm giving him more minutes. And so there is some interesting potential there. But I think with Dame is he wants a guaranteed kind of team that'll take him to have a serious playoff run. And he's the one that'd be playing with his team every day. He's the one in practices. He's the one he sees what's going on, but he doesn't think that there's enough there. And so, he's kind of out on this team. He's kind of out on this team. I mean, if you think about it, because his options are either change this team or get me out of here. So, when your leader kind of says something like that, even if they do run it back, they're going to have to be at least some serious changes. And chances are either Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons will be in a trade with a third pick. So the Portland Trailblazers right now are at a crossroads. They got to figure something out because they can't run back this team is the point. They can't run back the same exact players, is what Dame has said. And so they seem like they want to keep Dame around. They want to, keep him happy. They're not listening to you, Rem. They're trading some pieces. Someone's gonna have to get traded because Dame has said, that's his two options.
But it's not the same guys, though, if you think that Sharpe is just going to play from day one and he's going to be better. He wasn't, initially in the rotation. You're going to have Simons on a full. We've never seen Simons really play like a full season. Let's actually let the roster play 82 games together. And you're adding the number 3 pick. I think Portland, if they sit tight, this is going to play out perfectly for them because, again, we're all in on Scoot going number 2. I still believe that's what Charlotte's going to do. The odds are starting to reflect that. So that means Brandon Miller is going to be there at 3. And if the questions around picking Scoot are fit and, hit the reset button, all that, that all gets wiped away because Brandon Miller, he's a forward. You slot him in there. He can play with Sharpe, play with Simons, play with Dame. Nurkic at the 5, do we start looking to upgrade the roster there? But again, the core pieces, I think, are going to be a step up. They're going to be cheap. So the problem is going to be the West is loaded. Jokic, Curry, Durant, Booker, Kawhi, Wemby. Like, again, the West is going to be tough. So that is going to be an issue. But I think financially and the talent on the roster, I don't know if Dame is going to go somewhere. Is Dame going to go to Philly and be with Embiid? Like, that's a powerful 1-2 combo, but the rest of the roster is really going to be lacking. They're going to have to trade pieces away for a team that's already depleted, and it's going to be harder with the new rules. Like, just sit tight because with your contract, it's going to be a difficult situation, and they're going to have a chance to add cheap pieces. And I do think that's going to be Brandon Miller for them at 3, and that would be sigh of relief for that organization to get a wing in there. And if you're adding a wing, like that's what Dame wants, right? A guy who can complement him, like Brandon Miller can be that guy. Like, why can't the number 3 pick be the piece that Dame needs, plus Sharpe, plus just another year of Simons, plus all this stuff?
In a vacuum, you're right. We throw this team in 2K. It's probably the best thing to do. Dame's only 32, actually, which is kind of wild for him to be
Ooh.
hitting the emergency button. But this is the first time in Dame's tenure with the Trailblazers that he has openly talked about leaving. I mean, they're bringing up teams to him, and he's saying which one he wants to go to. So he has crossed the Rubicon. He has point. I think he has. He's not trying to call out like Anthony Davis. It's not to that level, but I think Dame in and of himself has passed the point where he wants to stay on this team, and maybe the best basketball decision is for him to stay, but he wants an established star, and he's made that really clear. And regardless of what this team's potential could be with him, without him, the main problem isn't whether this team will be good, because Shaedon Sharpe, he could turn into a solid player, like you said. With that athleticism, and if he brings up his shooting, I mean, you're gonna find a place in the NBA. Anthony Simons, we already talked about, and Brandon Miller is still gonna be a solid player in this league. Really high floor, but Dame has made it clear he wants an established star. Maybe the perception, maybe he's seen it wrong. He has had a lot of peer pressure for a lot of years to leave. Maybe he's, reading this team wrong. I mean, players we've seen aren't great GMs.
Yeah.
They're not great talent evaluators. So, maybe he just thinks this is another rebuilding part. And the thing is that so far, the Trailblazers haven't been great to him in terms of building a real team around him. I mean, the one team where, he had Seth Curry, who has shown to be a pretty good playoff performer. He has Nurkic healthy, Zach Collins. They're actually all healthy. Al-Farouq Aminu was on that team. They get to the Western Conference Finals, and they get absolutely obliterated. And, no matter what anyone of us believe about Charles James, CJ, he's not a star and not even an all-star. So he hasn't played with pretty much an all-star besides LaMarcus Aldridge his whole career. And LaMarcus is borderline, if that, with especially in today's NBA. The franchise has kind of screwed him his whole career. And so now, for once, he's kind of at the end of his rope. And, maybe staying with the team is the better option, but he just wants an established star for once. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the Trailblazers in 2020 in the next season, or if they trade someone, because the point is they have to do a trade. They have to do a trade. The point is the Portland trade has to happen unless Dame totally stands down, which, considering how protective he has been of staying in Portland up to this point, and now he's on podcasts, it was a boxing show, which was kind of weird. But they're there, talking about teams he'd like to go to, mentioning Miami and all that. And Miami does have some pretty interesting contracts, so who knows? It's him. That's the point. It's not the rest of the team. You're totally right. You're right. You're correct. The team has a lot of talent. It's him and whether he wants to play with this team. And he's made it clear so far that he doesn't.